down that camera and strap in. It's time for another episode of Talk Chat Live. Get ready for 60 minutes of wall-to-wall photography, including photo news and tips, along with your photography questions in real time, with answers from your host, Olympus Visionary Joe Edelman.
Hey gang, good Wednesday evening. Thanks for joining me for the live YouTube edition of Talk Chat. So before we get going, please do me a solid, take a moment, tell your photography friends that we are streaming live on YouTube right now. As always, Twitter, Facebook, they're the fastest way to get the word out. You can go ahead and you can click that share button down there, wherever it is, or you can share that link, TOGCHAT/live. As always, I'm going to go ahead and put it in the chat window there for you. So please let people know, get the word out, all right? And of course, the cool part, we've got people tuning in from all over the place right now. So please check in. Let me know you're here. Leave a comment. Let me know where you're watching from. It's always neat to see where we have people here from. I got Lynn here from New York. Joe is here from Michigan. I got Carl here from out in Missouri. Awesome to see everybody tonight. And of course, post your questions, gang. In fact, I will tell you right now, I've only got like 3 or 4 questions. So it could be a really short show tonight if we don't get some questions. And look, if you're here, I would hope that there is some way that I can help you with your photography. You know, my mission is to help you to develop a better understanding of the hows and whys behind great photography. So post those questions, and I will do my best to answer them all in the next 60 minutes. All right. So just a quick update, a little tiny piece of business, and then we will dive into the few questions that are here, and hopefully some more will show up in the process. But I just want to remind you guys, I have been doing webinars, several each week. In fact, I'm doing 2 this week. I did 1 yesterday on powerful color and shooting with gels. And tomorrow I have got, actually it's one of the most fun talks that I do, and it's a free one. It's called Understanding Creativity to Improve Your Photography. And I still got a few spots left on this. It's completely free to sign up. It's tomorrow evening at 6 p.m. I just put the link in the chat window there for you guys. You can visit that page, you sign up there, you'll get an email reminder tomorrow. You don't need any special equipment on your computer, just a web browser. And it's a 60-minute presentation that I guarantee you will make you think a little differently about how you approach your photography. And I'll also share this link too, just so you guys keep track of it. My full webinar schedule can be accessed at the link that I just posted there. It's joeedelman.com/edu, and you can see the upcoming calendar for all my webinars and register. Some of you may have taken some of these in the past. I do repeat them over time, but you will notice that I also keep adding new ones, and there's quite a few new ones coming. So this one here on June 9th, file management, create a system before it's too late. That's another free one, gang. A lot of you asked me about that along the way. So keep an eye on this page. There are new topics and new webinars being added weekly, okay? So anyway, that being said, let's dive in here, shall we? Ron says, I don't seem to have questions, but when someone else asks something, it's like, yeah, I want to know that as well. So Ron, I got a question for you. If you had to pick one thing, the one thing that you think that you struggle with the most in your photography, tell me what that is. But also do me a favor, when you type that answer, tell me what it is you like to photograph the most. Like, excuse me, are you a people photographer? Do you do birds, wildlife? What do you do? And then tell me what you struggle with the most. Let's start there, and I'll bet we can find a bunch of stuff to maybe help you out with tonight. All right? Okay, so I'm gonna scroll on back to the beginning here. First question of the night came in right before we started. It's from Ken Vincent, and Ken, this is an awesome question, and it's a question that I've been having a lot of conversations about recently. I've been spending a lot of time really thinking about and figuring out how I'm going to make this work. So his question is, moving forward, how will we as photographers be able to safely use makeup artists or hairstylists if they can't risk using products on more than one person due to possible contamination? So there's a lot of layers to this, Ken, even beyond actually what you've listed here, because indeed there are precautions that makeup artists and hairstylists and such are going to have to take with the way they use their products. And there's a lot of things. One is like obviously double dipping, okay, into makeup. Two, a lot of times, frequently, hairstylists and makeup artists will use, or I should say, reuse false eyelashes, where they're gonna, use them for one shoot, and then they'll, take them off and use them on another shoot. Some of the obvious stuff is easy, like making sure they're using disposable sponges, mascara wands. Things have to be cleaned. So the challenge is, Ken, there's a lot of things that makeup artists and hairstylists will need to do that is kind of in their purview. And honestly, a lot of what they need to do isn't really that dramatically different from things they should have been doing in the past for best practices. However, where it really becomes a challenge is to do makeup. Obviously, you've got a person that's got to work in close quarters to the subject because, at best they can kind of work at arm's length, right? So, I think that is realistically going to require that makeup artists and hairstylists are, for at least the foreseeable future as things open up, they're going to need to be wearing masks. People have got to be smart about, and actually, let me take that back. It's not about people being smart. People have to be responsible, and they have to be respectful of other people in terms of making sure that, look, if you're not feeling well, et cetera, no shoot right now is worth the risk of making someone else sick. It's just not. We've got to find a way to be more respectful as a society. So, in my case, and I've mentioned this in a couple different venues recently, one of the challenges that I have is now that my studio is back downstairs in the basement, I have a wife who is high risk for certain medical issues that have been impacted by this virus. My primary makeup artist, you all know, is Monet, who you have seen in many of my videos. She is immunocompromised, so I am in a situation where I have to actually be extremely careful. Certainly I don't know if that's going to mean that I'm going to have to work with a different makeup artist initially. I'm not rushing to get back into doing shoots as much as I'm dying to do shoots. I'm not going to rush it. Here, where I live in Pennsylvania, my county is still one of the counties that we're doing a red, yellow, green system in Pennsylvania, and we're still in the red, so we are basically locked down. We're not supposed to be doing anything that is non-essential at this point. So fortunately for me, at least, it's not even an option if I'm going to abide by the rules, which I have and which I will. But so that was a lot of information without really giving you a straight answer, Ken. I think really. It's about caring about people, and I get it. I don't want to make this a political conversation, and I really don't want to make it a debate. But the problem of it is humans, we are social creatures, we are social beings, and there are very few humans that like being cooped up inside and like being stuck and like being told that you can't go about your lives the way you want to, right? We just don't like that, and that's because we're very fortunate and we don't have to live our lives that way normally. So the challenge is, now that things are starting to open up, a lot of people are just so chomping at the bit. They're ready to go back to life as normal, and realistically, life is not normal, right? Life is not going to be normal for quite some time. And while things may be normal for you or the next guy, that doesn't mean that we are at a point in time where you can't cause damage to other people because of, your desire to get out and lead your life. And I am a big believer in, we're all in this together. I don't care what your age is. I don't care what your health is. There's implications here for everybody. So I think that We need to be smart. We need to be patient. We need to take our time. But one of the things I would also encourage you to do, Ken, when your state does open up and when you are feeling comfortable that, you are ready to go ahead and schedule a photo shoot and get out there and do some work, I would strongly encourage you to make sure, don't assume, but make sure that you are having a conversation with the makeup artist that you're going to work with or the hairstyles that you're going to work with about what steps are they taking. And for them, it falls under the category, which again, especially if they're licensed, they should be well versed in. But it's basically all, sanitation practices. And what you may run into as a photographer, you may run into a situation where your makeup artist or hairstylist may be telling you that they are going to have to raise their rates temporarily because their expenses are going to go up. If they are doing their job properly in terms of maximizing the sanitation, et cetera, they're going to be using lots of disposable things. They'll be using disposable brushes. They're never going to be using lipstick that's in tubes. Disposable sponges, mascara wands. I talked about that earlier. False eyelashes will be disposed of afterwards. So, all of those things, they're also going to be spending more money on sanitizing and cleaning, okay? So I would definitely encourage you as a photographer, for all of you, if you have a studio or even if people are coming to your house, you should have a dedicated space for people to work that has been cleaned down and wiped down, and it gets cleaned down and wiped down between shoots. You should be making sure that you have hand sanitizer available. I would even go so far as to have some masks available in case you get a subject that doesn't follow directions. Might save you from having to cancel a shoot. And obviously a model can't wear a mask while they're having their makeup done, but at the same time, when they first arrive and all that kind of stuff, if you're working in close quarters, they should be wearing a mask until it's time for them to sit down and have their makeup done. The more everybody does their part, the faster we get through this, period. And when I say get through it, I mean really get through it, like put this whole pandemic behind us, the loss of life, etc. So yeah, I don't know. I feel that was maybe kind of a wishy-washy answer, Ken, because I don't think we have a set roadmap yet, but hopefully that's helpful. I am optimistic, and I do feel like, hey, we're going to get back to it. The financial aspect of all this sucks. The inability to create and do the things that we enjoy sucks. But we will get through it. We will, survive it. Things will get back to normal. It's going to be a new normal at first, but I think we'll get there. It's just a matter of having to fight that. And believe me, I'm not a patient person, but we have to show some patience and have to show some diligence in the process. Okay. And Ken had another question. This one's a little tougher. Please explain the balance between a light source that is so close cause hot spots versus so far back that it bleeds light onto the background. I can't find a happy spot. So first of all, let me clarify one point that might help you solve this problem as you go forward, because hopefully it will tweak your thinking a little bit. The light source doesn't cause hot spots, right? You're getting hot spots for one of two reasons. You're getting a hot spot either because you are simply overexposing. That's reason number one. Or number two, person has shiny skin, i.e. it's a reflection, right? Those are the only two reasons why you're getting hot spots in your shot. Certainly, if you are putting the light really close to your subject and the person has shiny skin, you're exaggerating that hot spot. You're making it worse, and the closer the light gets, the more the hot spot will seem to be worse. So part of, to use your phrase, part of finding that sweet spot is, or happy spot, sorry. I would say there's two pieces to it. Number one, it's understanding that you've got to make sure you don't have the light too close to your subject, that you're creating hot spots from skin and things like that. Then, with regards to light bleeding onto the background, it's a matter of controlling it, right? So, if you have a situation where you are not able to separate your subject from the background, because the easiest way to not have the light bleed in the background is not to use grids, not even to use a flag or a gobo or any of that. The easiest way is just distance. So move the subject away from the background. That's the easiest way. If you don't have that space, then yeah, you may need to go with grids. You may need to flag it, which means you're going to put like, a piece of cardboard or a V-flat or something between the light and the background to flag off that light. Honestly though, Ken, it requires a little bit of practice. So it's worth noting that, did not want to hear that beep going on. Bear with me for 1 second. There we go. Sorry about that. Didn't want to hear that beep the whole time. So it's worth doing some practice. That's one of the first things that I would suggest that you do is do a little bit of practice so that you are kind of getting comfortable with where is that spot. But it's what you're dealing with is you're dealing with a combination of the inverse square law, and you're dealing with potentially the combination of the skin just being a little bit oily or shiny, and that's also, making it more challenging. So practice is the best way. If you don't have the ability to do practice with a person, get yourself a mannequin, which you can get mannequins for less than $70. But I would go ahead and get a mannequin and then practice with that. Okay? All right. Next question I had here is from Joe's Photography in Michigan. When looking at calibration equipment for monitors, does it matter which one you buy since they all do about the same thing? Well, Joe, I guess what I would ask, and I'm not trying to be a jerk, but I would say, well, look, when you're looking at buying a car, does it matter which one you buy? Because they all do about the same thing. See, it kind of matters, right? Depends on what you want, because they don't actually all do about the same thing. There are calibration tools that will just calibrate your monitors. There are calibration tools that are designed to calibrate your monitors and your printers and basically create the full workflow, so you're able to calibrate through the entire workflow. Some are a little bit more involved. Some are meant to be a little bit more streamlined. Some work a little better than others on Mac products, especially like an iMac or a MacBook, where you don't have as much actual control over brightness, contrast, and RGB as you would on independent monitor or PC monitor or TV. So yeah, I mean it kind of matters in that sense. Joe went on to mention here that he is looking at getting either the Spyder Pro Studio or the X-Rite iStudio. Happens to be sitting right here. I use the i1 from X-Rite. I am very happy with it. It's very simple. It's very easy. It has done well for me so far. I use, of course, I've got a 27-inch iMac 5K that is sitting to my left, and I have got the 27-inch LG, and I forget the model number, but it's the one that they actually sell in the Apple Store since they got rid of the Apple Cinema displays. And I won't lie to you, I actually, especially when I'm retouching now, I actually prefer the LG display over the iMac display. Just really, really love it. But yeah, I use those calibration tools. They're simple. They work really well. So yeah, that would be my advice. Do a little bit of research. Just make sure it's going to do all the things that you want to do. Because do understand, like for instance, even with a Mac, Apple actually has a calibration system built into their software, and it works. It's hard to use actually, but it works. So again, it all depends on part of the reason why you're calibrating. And I know we all say, well, because we want good color, but it's a matter of do you need it to follow through with printing? So it's worth doing a little bit of research and learning about the calibration process before you make the purchase, because these calibration tools they're not super cheap, right? So I would do that. Okay, and gang. So I'm down to Ron's question, and Eric just came in with a good question. Good. Guys, if you're here, don't waste your time. Put some questions in, because plus I'm like running out of questions. It's going to be a short night tonight. So let's go ahead. Ron, I asked for an answer. Ron came in a little bit earlier, and he typed, for those of you that maybe just came in late, he said, I don't seem to have questions, but when someone else asks something, I'm like, yeah, I want to know it as well. So I came back at Ron and asked him a little bit about what he shoots in at, and said, well, we can probably find things to help him out with. So he said he's a portrait photographer. He also shoots boudoir. But Ron, you didn't tell me what is like the big thing that you struggle with. So what's your number one on your list of things that you feel you could improve on? Tell me that, and I'll come back and we'll have a discussion. So Eric's question here. I've thought about having a home studio, but my wife is concerned about strangers having access to our house. Did you or your wife have any similar concerns, and how did or do you address those concerns? Yeah, so interestingly, Eric, my evolution into having a home studio actually began at our previous home. So I had a studio that was about 45 minutes away from where we lived, and I was still doing client work at that point in time. So that would mean there would be days where I would actually drive to the studio, 45 minutes there, do a 1 hour consultation, and maybe hang out for a few minutes, but then basically drive home. So my wife kind of started with this idea of, why don't you consider finishing the basement and turning it into a studio? And honestly, my first response every time it came up was like, oh, God, no, can't do that, and literally my first thought was like, so I'm photographing young women, and I'm going to say, oh, yeah, come by my house. We're going to go down in the basement, and we'll take pictures, right? It was just like, couldn't even consider it. Literally what got me to the point of considering it and actually kind of became the catalyst that got me to finally make the move was getting stuck on the Pennsylvania Turnpike one day for about 3.5 hours after having driven to the studio literally for a 1 hour consultation. I was like, okay, that's it. So over the course of probably the next week after that, I spent a good half an hour to an hour a day sitting in an unfinished basement, just trying to imagine working there and where things would go. And then started to do a little bit of research in terms of the costs, because I knew that it had to be, or at least in my mind, it had to be professional. It had to be a nice space. It had to be comfortable. So it was going to need some creature comforts, and it had to be functional for photography. So, figured out that I would be able to basically build out a really, really nice studio in my basement for about the cost of a year's rent at my studio. So I was like, okay. And then it came down to that question of, well, what about having people come in and out of, the house? So in that particular house, it was a townhouse. So I still live in a townhouse, but it's a different townhouse. So the entrance to the basement, you would come in the front door, and you essentially walk straight through the living room, like a little hook around the stairs, and then the basement entrance was right underneath the main stairs. So it was 10 feet that you would walk into the house, across carpet, light color carpet. So we did wind up putting a runner down because we knew we'd have some additional traffic. There was no bathroom in the basement, so to go to the bathroom, people would have to come back up to the main floor of the house and then continue into the house and around the corner to where the restroom was. Okay. I found, and again, my wife, in my case, my wife was all for that. I found once I did it, because I finally got to the point, it's like, yeah, this is really stupid for the work I'm doing. It's actually hard to justify. I was making money, but the reality of it was I was making less money than I could be making because I just didn't need the studio space. I loved that studio. I mean, that studio, it was a 2,000 square foot space. It was originally built and fitted as a photo studio. So it was an awesome space. I loved it. But the fact of the matter is, it was actually costing me money, not making me money. So I was like, okay, let's do this. So actually I hired a contractor, found like a handyman contractor, and worked out a deal with him where basically I was his assistant for the project. So that saved me some money on the build out. But I knew I couldn't do the build out by myself. So I wanted to work with somebody that knew what they were doing, but help them. And he was totally open to that. So we did that. And from minute one of booking and doing appointments, there's a couple things that I did that made it very functional. Number one, I've always been very upfront with people about where I work. In fact, now in this home, whenever I schedule something, or when we get back to when I schedule something, when I send all the details, I also include a link to the video that I did on my home studio. Now, I get it, most of you don't have a video of your home studio on YouTube, but why not? It doesn't have to be on YouTube even. And it doesn't even have to be a full video. Take some pictures, but be upfront with people. And I also realized, and I had kind of rationalized through, Eric, before I started, that the whole, hey, come take pictures in my basement thing, there's two elements to having that not be a concern. So the one, being very upfront and being very honest with people about where you work. Number two, making sure that you are showing work that is of a quality that shows that you are working as a professional at a professional level. Especially when we start talking about like working with models and that kind of stuff, it's really easy to get really crappy, really trashy pictures. Just is. And I'm even being polite when I describe it that way. So, if that's the kind of stuff that people are showing to the world, and it's like, yeah, it's in my basement, sure, a lot of people are going to be turned off by that. I can tell you that I have now, aside from the last year where I was leasing the space in the artist's lofts, I've had a studio in my house for over 10 years now, between the two homes. I have not once had a model or the parent of a younger model raise a question about working in my house. And that's because I've been very upfront, very forward. Here it is. As far as once people are in the house, how do you handle that? I make sure that in my studio, I always have bottled water, snacks, as many creature comforts as possible. While I will encourage my models, if they're going to be there for a full day, I tell them straight up front, we don't break for lunch. Shoot days or a work day, I don't stop for lunch. So if you are a person who needs something substantial to eat for lunch, I tell them you should bring a salad. By all means, it's not that they're not allowed to eat. It's just that we're not going to stop and say, okay, lunchtime, let's hang out for half an hour. No. So if the model brings something that requires refrigerating, when they come, they'll ask about putting it away. I will take it upstairs to the kitchen. I put it in the refrigerator, and I simply tell them, hey, when you're ready for it, you let me know. I'll go grab it. Done. So I'm not, basically letting them wander around the house. In my current situation, there also is still no restroom in the basement. It is on the first floor, and literally it is such that they walk up the stairs, and as soon as they walk out the door into the main space on the first floor, it is literally immediately around the corner. It's like a U-turn hook, and the restroom is right there. I've never had a problem with somebody wandering off or, anything like that. A big part of that, honestly, it's respect. You kind of get back the respect you give in the sense that when I'm dealing with these people, I'm dealing with them very professionally. They know that I am really serious about making great pictures. No games, no BS. Let's do this. So, yeah, it has not been a problem at all. But I can't tell you that's how your wife should feel. So yeah, that's kind of one of those things you kind of got to work through. One of the ways that you may be able to kind of sway her, Eric, is do a little bit of research locally in terms of what it would cost you to lease and then fit out a studio space compared to what it would cost you to do it at home. That might be enough of a deciding factor to get your wife to say, all right, well, we'll give it a try. And then if it doesn't work out, she's basically going to say, that's it. No, you're not having people come here anymore. But she knows then that the consequence is you're going to go look at spending that additional funds to to lease a space nearby. So I would maybe look at it that way. And if you have other specific concerns, let me know. Or she has other specific concerns, you're not sure quite how to deal with them. But I'm trying to give you as much of a brain dump on that as I can here. But those were things that that I've dealt with along the way. Okay. So, all right, let's see here. Scrolling down from Lane. Oh, Ron, I see your answers. I'll come back to those in just a second. So, when doing outside graduation photos, would it be good to take a laptop for checking photos between locations? Lane, since I know you and you're part of my mentor group, no, Lane. No. Is it wrong to shoot tethered? Is it wrong to maybe go download your photo? None of that's wrong. But Lane, you're not there yet, man. Focus on taking the pictures. I can tell that you are excited about taking these graduation pictures, but Lane, you're also making it a bigger deal than what it is. And that's just going to bury you. It's simply going to bury you. Okay? You need to go have some fun. If the idea behind these graduation photos is for you to go out and make some nice, simple graduation portraits of someone, then before that day, before that time, you should go out and you should scout your locations, and you should pick no more than 2 locations. You're better off if you just stick to 1. But pick no more than 2 locations, figure out the time of day you need to be there for the proper light, and then just go take pictures. You don't need extra lighting. You don't need anything, Lane. You need to focus on being able to take some images that are well composed, well exposed, and have interesting expressions. You keep asking me questions about technique and process, and yet, Lane, you've never asked me a question about connecting with your subject, about making your subject at ease. That's what counts. Photography is not about freaking cameras. Photography, when you're talking about people, graduation photos, it's about the person. It's about the interaction. You should know your camera inside out and backwards, or you shouldn't be doing the pictures if you're getting paid. If you're not getting paid, well, then that doesn't matter, but don't make it harder. Don't introduce more steps. Don't introduce more technology that you haven't previously used because you've got something new to do. That's like just an absolute wrong way to go about it, okay? Keep it simple, stupid. Done. Don't make it harder than it needs to be. Work with what you have. Work with what you know. You want to go out and work with a computer. You want to go try lighting. You want to go do this. Do that in your own time when a shoot doesn't count. That's the practice that we as photographers do. But since you obviously are doing this set of pictures and they matter to you, that's great. But right then and there, that's the end of the conversation about, well, should I do this? Should I do that? Should I do this? Should I do that? That tells you right out of the box, it's the wrong time to do it. It's the wrong time to do it. If it matters that much, do what you know. Keep it simple. Focus on what's important. And what's important is putting your subject at ease and making your subject look great. Because, Lane, I know that you are actually even a little bit older than me, I believe, which means there's a big age disparity between you and that graduation subject. Focus on how are you going to connect with that subject? How are you going to make that subject at ease? How are you going to make them relaxed? And how are you going to make it a fun experience for them? You do that, you actually stand a chance of getting decent pictures. If you go out, you're putzing around with all kind of gear, and then you're doing stuff that you don't normally do, you're just making it a ton harder. Don't make it harder. There is no reason to make photography difficult, ever. Okay? All right, so going back to Ron's first question. So Ron shoots portraits. He also shoots boudoir. He says that modifiers are what he struggles with, and then he goes on to say, I know that it's mainly practicing with various lighting setups and modifiers. I have the basic concepts down, but I struggle seeing how to improve the lighting. For me, it's trial and error. Okay, so we're getting there, Ron, but do me a favor, and I want one more answer. And then I saw that you asked about light meters, and so he did say, what are your recommendations on the use of light meters? Light meters are great. The interesting part about digital technologies, you kind of don't need them. But light meters are never a bad idea. One of the things that light meters do actually that is really wonderful, slows you down. Forces you to make deliberate decisions. Forces you to pay attention. So light meters can be great. I'm a big fan of Seaconic, okay? But what I'd like to know, Ron, is you mentioned about you struggle seeing how to improve your lighting. Tell me a little bit about when you say improve, is your lighting boring? Excuse me. Is it too harsh? Is it flat? Give me an adjective that kind of tells me what about your lighting needs to be improved. We're almost there where I can help you out with something, okay? All right, so let's see. And where am I at here? Joe's Photography. Do you think, oh goodness, really? Wait a minute. Do you think as a photographer we should have a YouTube slide with video, slideshow, and behind the scenes from the shoot or other things, i.e. reviews, tutorials? No, I actually think, well, the end of that, Joe, is probably the dumbest idea ever, because doing reviews and tutorials, how's that going to make you money as a photographer? Right? It's not. Do you think like your potential portrait subject is going to be like, oh, cool, he's teaching me about the inverse square law. I should hire him to take my picture. I promise you, my YouTube channel does not get me any photography clients. Zero. Okay? So, yeah, so that's completely pointless, right? Two completely different things. With regards to doing like video slideshows and behind the scenes from a shoot, you actually don't need a YouTube channel for that, because that would require people going to YouTube to see it. And unless you're going to do YouTube kind of like I do YouTube, where you're pumping out videos and all that kind of stuff, ain't nobody going to find you on YouTube. But video is very useful as a marketing tool. Oh, heck yeah. But you're going to go direct to Facebook with it. You're going to go direct to Instagram with it. Using video to show behind the scenes, to show what it's like when somebody is, doing a shoot with you, what the experience is. Oh my God, yeah, that stuff's huge. You should actually consider attending my marketing webinars, the website, the social media, the branding one, because I talk about those kind of marketing aspects, right? Video is an outstanding marketing tool, but that's not, video and YouTube are not the same thing. So, video is a medium to communicate with. YouTube is just a platform to host it. That's all it is, okay? If you want to do a YouTube channel and be a YouTuber, that's a whole different ballgame, right? People like Tony Northrup, people like Manny Ortiz, Jessica Kobiesi, they're YouTubers. I'm actually not a YouTuber and haven't been a YouTuber. I did 2.5 years of hardcore YouTube to build an audience so I could teach, and I teach full time. I don't make a living off of YouTube. People know me from YouTube. YouTube is how people find out about me. But I have not had a single photography job as a photographer come my way because of YouTube. And I'll tell you, I see it all the time when I'm doing marketing reviews. So, that I do video consultations, which you can book through my website. The number one reason people book me for those consultations is for marketing and things like that. So I'll open up the photographer's, website and social media to prepare for the consultation. And the first thing I see is the photographer's got a blog. And I go to their blog, and one article's about, here's pictures I took at a wedding, and it's just a bunch of pictures. The next article is them doing a really, really bad job of trying to write some tutorial for photographers, or even worse yet, doing a gear review about something. Like their portrait and wedding subjects care about that gear review. Like, really? Excuse me. No, it's not virus. It's some allergies. I cut the grass this afternoon. So, yeah, you definitely want to kind of stay on topic in that sense. But using video as a way to show people what the experience is like in working with you, oh my God, yes. Like, that's gold. So, I strongly recommend that. But you don't need a YouTube channel for that. Absolutely. So, you definitely want to make sure you're kind of keeping the things different. So, okay. All right. So let's see here. I'm still waiting to see if I get a response from Ron about what it is about the lighting that he'd like to change. I could use some more questions, guys. I'm like literally all done. So Lane, I see here you like the video where I treated the camera like a person you're going to take a picture of. And when I went to scout the location, I practiced on the mother as a surprise for her daughter. And that's good. I mean, that's the kind of stuff you need to be doing. But so keep the gear out of the equation, man. Keep it simple, okay? Make sure you're picking a location, and make sure you're picking a time of day where you're going to have nice light, and just work with what's there. Focus on actually doing interesting compositions, not there it is, right? Make it interesting, make it creative, not weird creative, not post-processing creative, just nice and interesting about the person. Understand that this assignment that you're taking on, Lane, it's not about your photography. Nobody gives a damn about the photographer. They care about their experience, and do these pictures represent them? Make sure you are looking at it through that lens, otherwise you fail before you even pick up the camera. Cannot stress that enough, okay? All right, so let's see, Ron. Not necessarily that the shots are bad, but I'm thinking along the lines of how could I have improved the rim lighting? Tweaking the shot, I guess. Well, okay, so, I mean, Ron, that's reasonable. So what I would say to you is this, so really what you have to do, and you don't have to apologize, man. Look, there's something that I've learned, Ron, in the course of becoming, an educator and doing YouTube and talking to people and all that kind of stuff. Two things that are really, really hard. Teaching is really, really hard. And learning is actually even harder than teaching. And the reason why I bring that up is, unfortunately, there's a lot of really sucky teachers. And there's a lot of really, really sucky students, okay? So don't apologize. But part of the way you can improve your photography, and this applies to all of you, so I'm not just picking on Ron, even though I kind of really put Ron on the spot, and he's probably regretting that he ever made his first statement. But seriously, Ron, this is actually a good conversation that's worth having. And this is not, I'm not griping, gang, in the sense that I don't want to come off sounding like, okay, well, this is the kind of stuff a teacher bitches about, right? No. This is something that I've learned that is a way that all of you could dramatically improve your photography. Because obviously you're all sitting here watching me on YouTube. So you are all people who are into photography, and you are all people who, I have no doubt, want to learn and want to improve. But what I experience as an educator over and over and over again is that people oftentimes don't know how to properly ask for help. And I shouldn't even say properly, because I hate the idea of right or wrong. Don't know how to effectively ask for help or ask a question so that they're getting a good answer. So I'll give you some examples, okay? And some of you already know, like, some of my like kind of pet peeve ones, but they're the worst. And those are the, like, what's the best lens for shooting a portrait? So now just think about that. No matter who you ask, even if you ask, I don't care if you ask Peter Hurley, I don't care if you will go back in time and ask Yusuf Karsh. It doesn't matter who you ask. How does anybody answer that question in an effective way? And what answer are you likely to get? If they answer it immediately, if you ask that question and they answer it immediately, are you smart enough to understand that the answer they just gave you is strictly based on their opinion of how they work? But that statement right there, that raises 100 other questions. Meaning, how do they work? Do they work with the same camera that you do? Do they take the same kind of pictures that you do? What are all the variables? So does their answer actually apply to you? Right? So when you ask questions, it's all about the context that you give. Otherwise, all you're really asking for is a person's opinion, and opinions don't help. So it's no different than what we do in my Facebook group. The more information you provide, the better the quality of the answer you can get. Because most people, if they're going to take the time to give you an answer, they are in a situation where they're willing to help you. They're trying to help you. But it's equally as important, and there is equally as much responsibility on the part of the person asking the question as there is the person giving the answer. So Ron, I'm not picking on you there, but I just want you to know this is the only reason I keep pushing back for more information, because I want to try and be able to help you something. So if we're talking about rim lights, since you mentioned here one of the things that he just typed back a minute ago, not necessarily that the shots are bad, but I think along the lines of how could I have improved the rim lighting? So here, since he gave me a question now that I can dig into, stick with me a second here, guys. We're going to do something that we've never before done on TOGCHAT, all right? So bear with me, and we're going to go ahead and go for a little adventure. And I'm going to actually use a piece of software here. I'm going to share it with you guys in just a second. I'm opening it up right now. I'm setting it up. And we're going to play around with rim lights a little bit. Real time, right here on TOGCHAT, live. Okay? So bear with me one sec. Let's do that. Let me open up this file. So this is a demo that I do in my webinar that is all about using colored gels. So we'll start with this one, Ron, because and Ron, I want you to give me info as we go along here, or even for the rest of you for that matter, questions about what I'm doing or how it could be done differently, or if as soon as you see me start this, if you're thinking, oh my God, like when I do a rim light, I have this problem or that problem. Come on, let's make this interactive, because the cool part is I can change some of this stuff on the fly, and I can show you, some really, really good examples here as we go. So bear with me one more second, and I just gotta find, I got everything set up here, and I'm not gonna lie, I lost the screen that lets me switch the scenes. So hang on one sec, and there it is. Okay, let me get that back where I can see it. And that is the wrong one. Come on, gang. All right, so bear with me, guys. We're going to get the screen here in just a sec. Let's get over here to secondary display. There we go. I'm going to put me here. We're going to go ahead and build this right in front of you, all right? I thought I had it all set up so that I could do it, but that's all right. Put that in there, that there. And I'm going to make me just a little bit bigger, so if I gesture that, you can see it. This is live. This is what we get. All right, so we'll start there. So this software, gang, this is that Set a Light 3D software that you hear me talk about quite a bit. So here we are. What I got going on here, let me just adjust the way my screen is set up a little bit. I've got a 3-light setup that you can see here, gang. So let's move that up there, and we'll come down here. So I got my main light, or my key light, that is in front of my subject on camera right. I've got a background light aimed at the black background that is back here, which is giving me that glow. And then I've got a blue rim light, okay? So, Ron, I'm going to tell you what I find to be the big rookie mistakes about rim lights. And if I'm missing something that happens to you, then talk to me about it, right? So here are the rookie mistakes that people tend to make when they do rim lights. They set a rim light up, and in fact, here, let's go so we can see it on this angle. We'll do this right there, okay? And they make the light too powerful. And the first time that they are, doing it, they think, well, like that's kind of really cool, or even worse yet, we're gonna make it even more powerful here. Let's go there to start, right? So now you notice that blue is really intense, and it's kind of cool, right? But there's actually 2 problems happening with the rim light now. So you want to be looking like right up here in the image that's up above me, okay? There are 2 problems happening with this rim light. Problem number 1, it's bright enough now that I'm starting to lose the detail in my subject's hair. That becomes simply distracting, okay? In fact, here, just to exaggerate it even more, we get in really close, and see how that detail's just gone? And now that highlight in the hair is the brightest part of the shot, which we don't want. And then the second one, which Ron just typed into the chat window there, spilling onto her face. Notice how I'm lighting up her nose, right? So all I have to do to resolve that, so first of all, I'm going to back the light up a little bit, because that's just crazy close. And I'm still going to turn the power down a little, because I want it to be subtle. When you make it subtle, notice how as I turn that color down, the color also got richer and deeper, and it has more mood and intention to it, which is really important. And by backing it up, so when I come forward, now I'm starting to light up the tip of her nose again. You can see her nose is starting to get blue, and even though that's not much, there's a little bit of blue in here on her jaw. Once I move it back, I'm getting just the rim lighting. Those are the 2 biggest rookie mistakes. Not paying attention to the placement of the rim light, and not paying attention to the brightness or intensity. And why are they rookie mistakes? It's actually really, really easy. Because think about it, guys. If you've ever done gels like this and done something like you're seeing in this picture, the first time that you do gels and you get that color and you look at the preview, it's like, That's so cool, right? And we kind of get caught up in the, oh my God, look at that color. Come on, we've all been there. And then when we get back into Photoshop and we're looking at them, it's kind of like, oh, that's a little much. Ron, his question is there a modifier on the rim light? This is just a speed light. So these 3 lights, let me give you guys a little bit of background if you're not familiar with this software. So right now, you'll notice, if you look up here, way up above the picture, up in the top, crop 2 means I'm shooting with a micro four thirds camera. 4.3 is simply the format of the image. Fixed 45 millimeter means I'm working with a 45 millimeter lens. So for you full frame folk, that's a 90 millimeter lens. 1/250th of a second, which is the sync speed for my camera, my Olympus OMD EM1 Mark III or 1X or Mark II. F8, 1/200th of a second. These are all 3 speed lights, okay? So the cool part of it is, if you look on the floor in this diagram, those grids are basically 1 foot apart. If I were to take these measurements and take these settings and go downstairs in my studio and measure it all out, set everything up, boom, the exposure would be spot on perfect. That's how amazing this software is. So with the exception of the key light, Ron, none of these speed lights are modified with anything other than a gel, just a colored gel. In the case of this one here, though, I do want to point out one thing. You'll notice that I have it zoomed in. Remember, most speed lights have the zoom head, right? They'll go from wide angle. Some go as wide as like 14 or 17 millimeter. Most are like 24 millimeter. And then they usually go up to 200 millimeter on the zoom. If you're using it for such as like a rim, it's a really good idea to zoom it in. And it's a good idea for 2 reasons. One, you actually pick up a little bit more power. It makes it a little bit more brighter because you're focusing all that light and it's going through that big magnifying glass that is the Fresnel lens on the front of your speed light, so it brightens it a little bit. 2, by narrowing the focus of it, if you're shooting in a tight space where your key light, especially if it's got a white diffuser on it, is close to your subject, if you're shooting in a tight space and you have that set really wide and it's bright enough, you're going to send that blue light off the front of your modifier and bounce it back onto your subject, and you're going to start to futz with the skin tones of your subject. So it's best to take it out of the mix by zooming it in, and you got to pay a little bit of attention. Now, here's one of the challenges that's also another rookie mistake. Photographers will get a subject, and even if they're sitting down, like this girl, in this case, she's sitting down, but they'll tell the girl, okay, go. And they expect the girl to be like, you know, click, 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 click. Well, yeah, you let the go far enough. You got a rim light over here. She's going to start turning this way. And the more she turns, the more you're just lighting up her nose. So that's why as a photographer, 1, you have to anticipate these kind of things. And 2, you have to direct your subject. So even if you get a subject that is actually good at posing, because the fact of the matter is, gang, I'll get a lot of model hate mail for this. Any of you that are finding your models on Instagram and Model Mayhem in that place, you'll find lots of girls that'll tell you they're good at posing. Sorry, they're not. Most professional models, most high-end models are not. They're just not. You got to understand it. In defense of the models, I don't want to make it sound like I'm just trashing models. I'm not, right? Remember, model gets in front of the camera. She can't see what the hell it looks like. She does a pose. All she knows is she spent some time in front of the mirror doing that, and it looked okay in front of the mirror. But her mirror at home, how is she looking at her body when she does that pose? She's looking down at her body. How are you usually photographing her if you're doing it without making her look short? You're looking up at least half of her body. So what she's seeing looking good is not what you're seeing and photographing. So even though she might have practiced that pose, she still has no idea what the hell it looks like. That's your job. That's your job as a photographer, right? So to get a girl and just say, yeah, go for it, right? Well, you've done a couple things. One, you've challenged your model. Like, okay, prove to me that you're good at posing. How many different things can you do with your head and your body and your shoulders? Most of which, like 90% of it's going to look stupid. It's going to look like crap. You're better off to deal with emotion. You're better off to deal with a character. So at a minimum, if you're determined to be one of those guys that's going to say, okay, pose, go, and just let them go to entertain you, because sorry, gang, you may hate me for saying it, but that's all you're doing. is you're asking to be entertained because you're taking crap pictures while you're doing it. I defy you to prove me wrong. But if you're determined to be that person, at a minimum, take 2 minutes, not even 2 minutes. When you sit the girl down before you say go, say, okay, now look, this light right here, this is your light. As long as your face is like looking at me or kind of cheating this way, you're going to have gorgeous light. If you turn your face this way, you have no light. And we have really bad pictures. So remember, at me or this way, not this way. Now, here's the promise I'll make you. If you tell the girl, okay, go, pose, give her 30 seconds and she'll look this way. She just will. Okay? But at least when you remind her, no, light's on the other side, she's going to go right back and she's going to get it, and it'll be a little bit more fluid. Okay? But, Ron, if there's anything else I can help you with rim lights, like, let me know here. But those are like the rookie mistakes for rim lights where people run into problems. And especially if you're doing it with color, more often than not. And you guys know I'm all about color. In fact, ironically, this is the webinar that I did last night. So you guys are getting a piece of that webinar for free, okay? I'm all about color. I use tons of color. I love color. But even with bright, bold colors like you're seeing here, understand that they're best done in a really, really subtle way. And even like that blue that's on her hair, you know, that might be a little bit much. We could tone it down, or better yet, maybe we don't want to make her hair crazy, right? So let's just turn this off for a second. You know, maybe we just want to be able to separate her from the background. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to move this light all together. But I'll show you what we can do with it that's going to make it kind of like very different. I'm going to turn it around so it faces the backdrop. I'm going to move it back here. It's still turned off at the moment, so don't worry. It's not even on. But what I do want to do is I want to go ahead and I want to move my main light over a little closer to the camera, just so that I soften the light that's on my subject, right? But now, just to make the background a little bit more interesting, without like changing her hair, I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to leave that blue filter on, and I'm going to turn that on, I'm going to turn it up, and then I'm going to start to kind of mix my colors. Let's go wider on it. So, you know, I'm kind of blending the colors a little bit more. Move this over to here. You know, so I can do that, and then we can all afford, you know, I get it. People always tell me, well, you know, I can't afford all kind of fancy lights. Like 3 is a lot of lights. Okay, so we'll just go get a piece of white foam board from, you know, Walmart, and we'll go ahead and we'll bring a reflector in, and boom, now I can soften that light on the side of her face, and I've got real soft, simple light, really interesting. But the other part of what I've done here, guys, is pay attention. You know, I'm using some color theory. I'm working with actually analogous colors. I'm not going to take the time to explain that now. You should take my webinar, okay? But what I'm doing is I'm tying the colors into her eye color and the color of her sweater, which is a dark blue. And I'm working with another shade of blue. I'm working with the magenta, the pink, that, you know, really, really makes that pop out, okay? So, again, it's all detail. It's all detail pieces. So hopefully that helps you guys. All right? Okay, I saw a couple other questions come in here. Eric, how do you get your subjects to open up? I'm an introvert and I have trouble trying to relate to my subjects sometimes. So I hope, maybe, you didn't necessarily choose the right words for your question. So let me explain it. I'm not an introvert, but believe it or not, I'm actually rather shy. This is my safe space, right? Teaching, being in front of people and talking photography. Photography is my shield. You mentioned about having trouble trying to relate to your subjects. Are you sure that you don't mean having trouble trying to communicate to your subjects? Because relating to somebody, I don't want to make you sound like a bad guy, but the idea of being able to relate to somebody, that requires empathy, right? If we have empathy towards people, it's actually really easy to relate to people, okay? Or at least to take that first step in relating to people. in terms of getting your subjects to open up, it's actually incredibly simple to, right, okay, so Eric just said more communicating. That's what I thought. So the first thing, Eric, is show interest. Ask questions. Humans, it's part of the human condition. People actually enjoy talking about themselves, right? They really do, even shy people. When somebody shows sincere interest in them, people actually enjoy talking about themselves, right? So, honestly, the first step is ask questions. Anybody that's ever been photographed by me will tell you that I'm like the nosiest guy in the world. But I don't go at it at the approach of like, oh my God, I'm just like nosy, dish me the dirt. I go at it with pure interest, and I show interest and empathy. It's funny, I had this is a true story, and then I want to answer two other questions here real quick. I'm going to wrap it up. This was probably, almost 10 years ago now. I got a phone call. True story, guys. This stuff's real. It happens, right? I got a phone call from a woman, and she wanted to know the cost for a photo shoot. This was when I had my studio that was, before I built my first home studio. She wanted to know the cost for a photo shoot, and I said, well, what exactly are you looking for? She kind of hemmed and hawed a little bit, and then finally she tells me, she's like, I'm an escort, and I need the photos for a website so that people will hire me. And I kind of had this moment of like, okay. And so, I want to say, well, so are you looking for like, I'm honestly was kind of naive to the whole thing. I'm like, dude, you looking for headshots? What are you looking for? And she goes on to explain, no, she wants like a pretty headshot, but she also wants kind of like some sexy lingerie pictures, and she wanted a couple, quote unquote, tasteful nudes, the whole bit. So once I got a sense of what she was doing, I gave her a price, right? So she agreed. The day comes, I had a makeup artist there, the whole bit, and we get in the studio, we do the makeup, and we start shooting. And so after I booked the shoot, I asked her a little bit about, like, you said you're going to do these on a website. Like, is this your own personal website? She's like, no. There's these websites where people go that they can book escorts. I'm like, oh, really? Okay. So she gave me the name of two of them. So I had gone and I checked the websites out because I'm thinking, well, all right, if this is where the pictures are going, let me see what's there. Because honestly, I was kind of a little bit scared. It's like, okay, so like, are these porn websites? Like, what is this? So I go to this website and I'm reading all about things that I've never even imagined before. Like, I learned all about the girlfriend experience. I'm like, what is that, right? So anyway, I did my research. So now I had a sense of, okay, these are the kind of pictures that people are using. And they weren't actually rather trashy. Some of them were like really awesome. And that's, I was like, all right, cool. Now I know what we're doing. But I'm nosy and I'm curious. Remember, why do I do photography? It's access to people. I had never photographed an escort before, at least not that I knew of. And this woman wanted me to photograph her because she's an escort and because she needs this picture. So the day of the shoot, I will admit, like, my curiosity was kind of like in high gear. So I'm asking this woman like all kinds of questions. And I mean, I'm not, trying to do it like some teenager. So I'm not like overly eager with the questions, but I'm trying to be cool about it and just, being curious. And I was honest with her about, like, honestly, I'm really curious. Like, so finally, we're at one point, and I'll admit, I didn't do the best of job with all of this. I'm not gonna lie, the pictures turned out great. The woman was actually beautiful. But we're in the middle of doing the shot. She's in a lingerie set and posing on what looks like a bed, and it's all set up. And I was asking her questions, and I don't remember the question that I asked, but this woman, like, just stops dead in her tracks and looks at me, and she's like, "You are so rude." And I was like mortified. I'm like, oh my God. And she's like, "You are so nosy." And there's this very pregnant 10-second pause. And she went on to answer the question that I asked, and then pretty much gave me her entire life story. We basically stopped taking pictures for about a half an hour, and this woman tells me like everything about her. And then I picked up the camera again, because I wound up putting the camera down, just sat and listened. And then I picked the camera up after about a half an hour when she was slowing down with the story. And the pictures were freaking awesome. And the pictures taken after she told me the story were so much better than the pictures before. Because before, ironically, she was of the thought process, well, I had to tell this guy I'm an escort, and he's probably judging me. And I went back and replayed a lot in my mind. The questions that I was asking her initially were kind of 30,000-foot questions because I was afraid to probe too much. But the more I kept getting answers, then I was probing a little bit more. So while I was still up in those high-level questions, she's totally thinking, oh, okay, he just thinks like I'm some freak, and I'm judging him. Once we got to the point where she actually let her guard down, even though she was pissed at me for keep pushing, once she let her guard down and she told me this whole story, there was nothing to guard anymore. And the pictures were like awesome. And it was a great shoot. So believe me, I can't claim credit for being that smart. That's just how it worked out. But the point is, it's just an example. People actually do like to share their stories when they feel safe sharing their story, and when they feel like they're not being judged, and when they feel like there's a sincere interest. Pays off. Okay? All right, so Eric's got a question here. So I got 2 questions I'm going to wrap up with. Eric's, and then I want to answer Ron's question about the software. How do I battle gas? Rolaids, Tums, I think those are probably the best. Sorry. I'm wanting the Ollie 17 f1.2, and I have a plethora of glass, and it is not a need. I know you often say new should be reserved for having exceeded what my current equipment does. Yeah, I mean, Eric, obviously I'm an Olympus ambassador, and, you know, I'm certainly going to encourage you to use Olympus stuff and all that, but if you don't need it, it is gas. So, and that's not cheap gas, right? It's a pro lens. It's a gorgeous lens. I will tell you this, though, and again, full disclosure, as an Olympus ambassador, I have the 17, I have the 25, I have the 45, the 3, what they like to call I'm drawing a blank, not the Holy Grail. Anyway, the 3 lenses. The one that I use the least is the 17. I just don't use that. And in part because I have the 14. The 14 2.8, oh my God, I love that lens. Love that lens. So, yeah, it's all a matter of what you need, what you can afford, honestly. But, so yeah, for me, that's like my least used. But yeah, it's an amazing lens. So, and then last, Ron asked about the software. What did I say the name of the software is? It's Set Alight 3D from Elixir software here. I will show you guys. Here is their website. Here is, that's it, Nick, Holy Trinity. Yes, thank you. There is the link to their website. And then while I'm here, I will also share with you, Ron, and any of you for that matter, if you liked what I was demoing with that software and want to learn more about lighting with me, I've got a couple webinars that are going to be coming up on lighting. In fact, I'm going to be doing a basic portrait lighting and some other stuff. But the one that I mentioned I did last night, it's all about the color gels and rims and all that kind of stuff. I will be repeating that one on July 2nd. Okay, so here's the registration for it. In fact, let me get you guys the link. It's how to make creative portraits with color gels. And if you sign up for that webinar, it's only $15. You will get a discount code during the webinar to get 15% off of the Satellite 3D software, okay? You can download a free trial. So understand, gang, before you rush out and buy this software, and I make no money on it. I'm not an ambassador for them. I don't get a cut if you buy it or none of that stuff. But I will tell you this. It has a learning curve, right? It's amazing software. It has a learning curve. So I will give you the same piece of advice I give that I give to my webinar students. If you have a choice, or let me say, if I had a choice to make for you, and if that choice was for you to purchase a mannequin to practice with, or to practice the piece of software, hands down, spend $70 and go to Amazon and buy a mannequin. So that you are actually picking up your camera, using your lights, and photographing an object that has cheeks, nose, eyes, chin, all that stuff, and actually practicing with your camera. So if you have the option between the two, mannequin all the way. The mannequin that I use here, I'll track her down for you here. Hang on, let's do it right here. Now, part of the rule on the mannequin thing, if you get a mannequin, you have to name the mannequin, okay? And this isn't even my, I do have affiliate links with Amazon, but I'm not logged into that right now. So I'm giving you the link straight up, okay? That's the mannequin that I have. Mine is named Lola, right? You know that. But let me just make sure that's going to refresh. It does, okay. The big thing if you buy a mannequin, make sure that it is a mannequin that doesn't have a painted face. You want it to actually have a nose and cheeks and a chin. So again, I love Elixir software. This stuff it's truly amazing. It has a learning curve, but while it works really great, if you have the choice of being able to pick up your camera and practice with an object in front of you as opposed to playing with software, guys, mannequin all the way, all the way. But yeah, Margot, I saw your comment about the basic portrait stuff. It's coming real soon. I'll be actually posting information on like 4 new webinars before this week is out, before the weekend's over. So stay tuned. Eric, is Lola finally home now? Lola is back home. In fact, this morning I took the last pieces of stuff out of the studio, and whoops, that's the wrong screen. Yeah, this morning I took the last pieces of stuff out of the studio, and tomorrow morning I have my return the keys walkthrough, you know, with the leasing agent and that. So yep, it's done. We're finished. The studio downstairs is kind of trashed at the moment. It's kind of about like 40% back together. So I have a lot of work to do down there over the next week or so. But the good news is I can't really shoot right now, so that'll get done. But so anyway, gang, thank you for hanging out tonight. I hope that you guys take something away from this. We were kind of a little bit all over the place tonight, but I think it was also a little bit fun to play with that lighting stuff. I want to try and mix a little bit more of that into what we're doing with TOGCHAT. Is kind of trying to help you guys, you know, solve some actual functional problems. Even maybe do a little bit more Photoshop stuff. I'm not going to start doing Photoshop tutorials, but I will share the techniques that I use and the stuff that I do. You guys know that for Photoshop, I'm a big fan of Unmish Dinda, Pixim Perfect. But, you know, I do want to try and kind of expand on that, because with this setup that I have now, the computer can handle all the additional software while we're streaming. And I got a couple other gadgets inbound coming that will actually allow me to do a little bit more stuff. Since I'm doing so much of this online teaching, I'm kind of going all in terms of making sure that I can continue to make these experiences as immersive as possible. So more cool stuff to come, but as always, gang, thank you so much. Please, like, whatever you're doing in all this craziness, number one, stay safe and stay healthy. That's super important. But pick up your cameras. You got to shoot. You got to practice. Even if you're like me, I can't do it. I can't work with a makeup artist. I can't work with a model right now. I still take pictures. I mean, today, I'll be honest, it was iPhone pictures today. I was just like goofing around at lunchtime just to do something, okay? But I'm the kind of person, like, I can't go a day without doing something that's a picture in my head. I just can't. And that's part of what helps keep me sharp. It helps keep my head in the game, and it keeps me excited, and it keeps me creative. So please try it. You know, creativity, it's a habit. Yeah, you're born with a certain amount of it, and it's a thought process, but really being creative, it's a habit. You have to keep at it. It's like exercising. It's like anything else. You got to keep at it. So stay safe. For my mentor group, I'll see you guys Friday night, and hopefully I'll see some of you tomorrow night at the webinar, Understanding Creativity, and if not, I'll see you guys back here next week. And remember, of course, these words.
Thanks for watching another live episode of TOGCHAT. Now, pick up that camera and shoot something, because your best shot is your next shot. So keep learning, keep thinking, and keep shooting. Adios.